Hello and welcome to the garden, albeit a slightly different view than you're used to seeing. So Storm Eunice came through on Friday and we've had 4 days of power cut following that. So I had a couple of videos I was working on at the end of last week. Didn't get those finished. Hopefully I'll get them uploaded in the next day or two. But today I thought I'd just take a little look around and show you the damage. It's not too bad, but one or two things that I need to take care of. So on Friday morning, during the storm, I had a doctor's appointment that got me out of the house. Didn't really enjoy that. I would have rather stayed indoors. But on the way back, I noticed that there was a tree hanging in the road, and ours is a very narrow lane, so it doesn't take a lot to block that. To start with, I couldn't figure out where this tree had come from, but I'll show you where it came from. So we've got a couple of nice fir trees there, and well, you might just be able to make out that the one on the right is rather shorter than the one on the left. And in fact, the one on the right is, or was, a much larger tree. So the storm had snapped the top portion of that tree off entirely, and then it came crashing through the fence. So you can see the remains of the tree here. And we were very fortunate actually that it just came through that one section. So I think the repair shouldn't be too bad. Obviously that part of the fence is rather badly smashed up, but I can replace that fairly easily, I would have thought. So this looks like entirely healthy timber. I mean, there's no rot or decay or disease, but yeah, this just sheared off. I mean, you can see where it's just broken away from the lower half there, just in the wind. I mean, it's quite a big chunk at the top of the tree. So we had a bit of fun here, clearing this out of the road and cutting off a lot of these branches. Thankfully, while we were working on that, a couple of chaps came by and they happened to have a chainsaw in their van and gave us a hand. I was working away with a forestry saw. I do actually have a chainsaw, though I haven't used it for a few years, and to be honest, I don't like using it. I'm a little bit nervous of chainsaws, I must confess. But I have a wonderful Japanese forestry saw. And not only is it a pretty cool looking saw, it's remarkably effective. It cuts beautifully. So I was cutting off most of these limbs with the forestry saw, and yeah, that was great. I'm glad these others haven't gone yet. They are shaking around a fair old bit, and they're pretty tall and pretty spindly. Hopefully that means they're nice and flexible. And I think I will get out of their path now. I do not want to be standing here if something does come down. In the garden itself, we've had surprisingly little damage, so I'm quite happy with that. There are one or two areas that got a bit windswept. Behind me, the netting over the alliums there, the shallots, garlic and some overwintering onions, that of course was ripped off, but my wife had already, the day before, laid a load of compost bags down on one side of the netting, so we knew it wouldn't actually fly away, but of course it came off of the bed itself. The onions are a bit battered and bruised, lots of broken and bent tops on them, but they'll survive, I think, and they'll be okay. I mean, these are not our main crop onions, so it's not that critical. The garlic looks a little bit windswept, but again, I think it should survive okay. Similarly with the shallots here, they look okay. There's a bit of damage to them, but not too bad. The wind managed to get under one of these cold frames, the others are fine, and of course it blew out one of the panels. We do have the panel, so it didn't fly far, and we then dropped our large sieve on here to stop the rest of the frame from going. You might just be able to make out that it's buckled the metal work there a little bit, but I'm sure it'll still be serviceable. Now this is the bit that I find rather remarkable. I'd expected this to be completely shredded, and okay, the netting is a little bit trashed here, or fleece I should say. You can see it's been ripped out there. We had this in place just to keep the wind off of it, ordinary wind, not for the storm specifically, but it seems to have done a reasonable job. You can see we've lost some of these plants. That one is snapped over, and this one as well, and there's a few more. Now those stems I think will die pretty soon. They look all right at the moment. You can see that looks perfectly healthy, but I think it's not going to be long before those stems fail. On the other hand, looking down at the base of the plant there, we have the new shoots coming up, the side shoots. So I'll probably cut that main stem off and just allow the side shoots to develop. That'll be okay. And I need to get these sort of tied up and staked, because they have taken a bit of a beating. So now looking at one of the greenhouses, you might be able to see that this has been shoved about on the base. It's not sitting right on this corner at all. And if I go up the other end, you can see that it's overhanging there. The storm has just shoved this greenhouse on this base. It's really very odd, because the wind was coming from this direction, so why the greenhouse has gone that way, I'm really not sure. There must have been some really turbulent wind in this enclosed area, I think, to have caused that. But I thought we were going to lose this entire greenhouse, to be honest. I'm quite happy that it's still here. I think it must have broken some or possibly all of the clips that hold this down to the blockwork. So I need to get in here and refix this with some new screws and probably some new clips of some sort. The frame is a bit bent out of shape all along here, but I think we'll get it back reasonably okay. I mean, this isn't the best greenhouse, to be honest. It is all a little bit flimsy. These extrusions aren't as thick as they are on the big greenhouses, and the whole structure is just a little bit suspect, to be honest. I'm hoping that we'll still get many years of service out of it, because apart from the wind, I mean, there's not a lot for these little bits to do here. So I hope we can still use it, but yeah, it did take quite a pounding. You might be able to make out the duct tape there on the window. After we dealt with the fallen tree and cleared it out of the road, I just happened to look out of the window and saw this fly open, and actually that polycarbonate has come out of the frame. I don't know if the frame's broken. It might be. I've got some repair work to do there. And looking at it now, I think the other one has a similar problem. The polycarbonate is at least out of the frame in this corner. So yeah, a little bit of repair work to do to the windows. So I am rather foolish, I must say. We really shouldn't have been in the garden at all during the storm, clearing that tree out of the road. It's a little bit silly. The other tree could have lost its top, and in all likelihood that would have landed fairly close to where we were working. So I don't recommend that. That was a little bit silly. even more silly was to come down to this greenhouse in the middle of the storm as it was really ramping up and try to save these windows. If I hadn't have done it, I'm certain that the entire greenhouse would have gone. The wind was getting in here. The whole thing was it was just the sides were moving, and the windows were flapping, and it really felt like it could go at any moment. I'm quite amazed that we haven't got broken panes. I've had glass blow out of here before. I've had the door blown off and half the wall gone, but for some reason it just managed to hang in there. The direction of the wind must have been a little bit more favourable than the last storm that came through. But anyway, we were down here in the middle of the storm and trying to make this a little bit more secure, so we just tied this window catch down to the potting bench here. The bench is really heavy, so that wasn't going anywhere. But you can see it, the storm broke one of these catches. I mean, these are only plastic, so it's not that surprising. But as soon as it did that, of course, the wind got in here, and that was really threatening to destroy the whole thing. Both catches are still in place on the other one. This piece of string was added as a precaution, but yeah, it's done okay. I'm quite relieved. While we were stood here tying these pieces of string, an almighty gust came by, and we looked over at our outbuildings there. We've got a row of 4 sort of sheds. The first one's the potting shed. You will have seen that, I'm sure, on numerous videos. And we watched its corrugated iron roof fly off. I mean, it was quite impressive, really. These big sheets of corrugated iron were tossed up in the air like they were paper. I mean, it was amazing. And they went up high in the air, and they travelled, I don't know, 20, 30 yards. Some left our property. Some just went down the back behind the sheds there. Some left the property, were in a public footpath where we had to go and retrieve them. And then some blew over onto the neighbouring property. Thankfully, that's not a residential property, so there was nobody there at that time to get hurt. But sheets of corrugated iron flying around, that's not good. That's pretty dangerous. So yeah, my second really stupid moment of the day, getting on that roof to try and screw down what was left of it. Let me show you the damage. You can see we've got broken timbers here. We've got dislodged brickwork. The roof, I mean, it was never a particularly great roof, I must say, but it served us quite well for, I don't know, 17 years or so. So it's a shame to see it completely trashed like this. And these timbers are actually broken. You can see that they're way above where they should be sitting. And brickwork has been smashed there. Oh, nothing we can do about it. It's a bit of a mess. There's a loose block over there. Well, my poor potting shed has been thoroughly trashed. Now, we had to remove as much as we could. Rain was hammering through here the day after the storm, and well, the shelves on the racking there, they're just thin chipboard, and it was getting soaked. I don't know yet whether they will dry out okay, chipboard, when it gets wet. It's pretty rubbish, so I don't know. They may or may not be scrap. But then we took out hurriedly anything in here that wouldn't survive a bit of rain, so we're just left mostly with plant pots and debris from the destruction. You can see up there just how powerful that was, and it's ripped those bricks off of the top of the wall there, and it's lifted this whole roof up at least 6 inches. So in the middle of the storm, I got up on this roof with a pocket full of screws, screwdriver and a drill, and started trying to fix these sheets back down because the force of the wind had pulled most of the fixings out and lots of these were just flapping around, and I could see those flying off as well. Now, there didn't ought to be anybody out during the storm, but there are other people's property, and possibly another person could have been out and about. You just don't know. There's a public footpath nearby, and you get a lot of people at the adjacent property, so I didn't want these flying off and causing any more damage or harm to anyone, so I managed to screw them down. Of course, I've probably ruined them. Well, I think the roof is pretty much ruined anyway, but by drilling through the sheets and just screwing them down without the right sort of fixings and doing it in the wrong way, yeah, I've made it so that they will leak now, but they're not going to leak more than that big hole up there, so I didn't think it was that important while I was doing it. Anyway, we managed to secure the rest. The structure is pretty much shot, but I think we're unlikely to get storms like that pass through anytime soon, so I'll have to see what we're going to do to fix this up. It will probably be quite a long time before we get these sheds back in working order. They are in a bit of a state. Brickwork, blockwork, all the woodwork needs to come off, and of course the roofing sheets. So, and I'm inclined to do it with something a little less dangerous than a corrugated iron sheet. Seeing that fly off in the wind was, oh, that was a scary moment. So I might use something that's less likely to cause too much destruction if we get a storm like this come through again. Hopefully not. Well, after fixing the roof, our biggest worry was our pepper plants, because having lost power, it would have been far too cold to leave them outdoors, and we moved them indoors straight away. Unfortunately, the power was off for so long that the house got really cold. The plants have undoubtedly been colder than they would really like to be, and the light levels are just rubbish indoors in comparison with out here. We put them in the brightest parts of the house, but they haven't liked it, and they've been in there for 5 days now. We moved them down to the greenhouse today, but without power they've been really rather cold and quite miserable. But I'll show you the plants. Some of them look okay. I'm not going to resow at this stage. I will see what happens to them. I think the aubergines have suffered more than the peppers. The peppers, I think, will probably recover okay. They've all gone quite a bit leggy, of course, in the last 5 days. They're growing quite quick at this time of year, so it does make a big difference if the light is poor. So first, for the good news, the young transplants that I made in a recent video, well, they all appear to have survived. A few of them, those at the back, are looking a little bit more leggy, but these aren't looking bad at all. So all of the plants are alive so far, but you can see that these have gone really leggy, and some of them don't look great. I mean, that's an unhealthy looking leaf on there. They just have the look of plants that aren't very happy. So I think their condition has been affected, and ideally you would scrap these and start again, because once the plants have had a bad experience, they don't always recover so well. And well, they're a little bit spindly for their height here now, and yeah, it's not ideal. The ones I'm really worried about are the aubergines, and well, I'm almost certain we're going to lose this one. That one just doesn't look at all well. I mean, these leaves have rolled up, and yeah, I'm almost certain that quite a few of these are going to pack up, and that's a pity. I mean, this one is surely gone. I don't know if it will perk up. I'm not going to do anything with them. I'll leave them here, and well, we'll see what happens. But they are very sad looking specimens. If I end up with no aubergines at all, I'll probably buy some plants from somewhere, but it would be good if a few of these managed to make it through. Well, of course, it's a bit of a pity to see those plants looking just a little bit sad, at least compared with where they were before the storm arrived and brought the power cuts. It would be outrageous, of course, to complain too much. People lost their lives in the storm and the property damage was extreme in places, so I'm really not going to complain at all. We have a little bit of damage, but I think we got away fairly lightly. It could have been much worse. Our polytunnel's fine, the two big greenhouses look fine, and this fella managed to survive despite taking a bit of a pounding, so all things considered, we got away fairly lightly. Anyway, I am back on the case now. We've got power back. I will get this video uploaded, then I will take a look at the footage I shot last week. I shot a couple of videos before the storm came, and hopefully I'll get those up in the next day or two, and then I better get on with some work because I'm at least a week behind now. Anyway, that's all for this video. Thanks very much for watching, and bye for now.